Hey, GW. Okay, so yesterday we reviewed VHS Viral, which I told you was not the strongest entry in the series. VHS 94 is a big step up from VHS Viral, and I'm telling you right now, it was good to see a very entertaining, very bloody movie. Sort of harkening back to the days of VHS 1 and 2. This one was very, very cool. Um, had a lot of stuff going for it. There's stories that are pretty strong in this film. So we're gonna recap this movie first. This one is not put out by Magnet, so they must have lost the licensing for this film or this franchise, or they got outbidded. This I told you was a Shudder exclusive, which it is, in conjunction with Studio 71. Bloody Disgusting, Hangar 18, and Cinema Apocalypse, which is relatively new because I haven't seen anything that they have done. But let's just jump into it. Again, this is an anthology picture just like the other three. Of course, you guys knew that. Um, has a bunch of directors. It's directed by one segment's done by Jennifer Reeder. Uh, the second segment, called Storm Drain. The first segment was called Holy Hell, and we'll cover these segments here in a minute. Storm Drain was written and directed by Chloe Okuno. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, I'm going to explain these first two segments. The first segment, Holy Hell, is about a supposed drug raid in a warehouse where there's one hell of a murder scene. Very grisly, very, very wicked sort of crime scene. And as the SWAT team is investigating, you have the stories. The SWAT team story, Holy Hell, is the wraparound story, which goes the whole way through the movie. The second story, Storm Drain, is a very, very interesting particular entry into this. It deals with a news reporter who is looking at a myth of a creature called the Rat Man. And her boss tells her to go into the sewers and sort of seek out this creature. It has shades of The Howling in it because, again, you have a news reporter who at the end turns into some sort of a creature. You have an alien / rat type creature that inhabits the sewer that is killing people. And it's basically a short, yet poignant, yet claustrophobic story, and it's very cool. The end of it is very gory. We get to see a news reporter's face get ripped off, eyeballs fall over the place, and it's great. The story is effective because it plays on the myths of like Bigfoot or the Green Man, if you guys ever heard of that, you know, or the Mothman. You guys saw that movie with Richard Gere, The Mothman Prophecies. It's the same type of situation. So that's pretty interesting. Then we move back to the drug raid at the house warehouse where more grisly discoveries are shown, and the second tape is now played. The second story, it's called The Empty Wake. This story is short, creepy, and it takes cues from like Night of the Living Dead. There was a Tales from the Crypt episode that was set in a mortuary in a funeral home, and it's about a woman who has to stay to let people into a wake to a person who may or may not be dead. Very grisly, very to the point, very creepy. Definitely sets a tone of being eerie. And again, it uses the funeral home for most of the setting, in fact, all of the setting. And it was a very enjoyable story. The creature effects in this, the zombie effects, were pretty cool because you get to see a guy with half his face, guts coming out all over the place. And again, it could have been its own half hour, horror story and something else. And it was written and directed again by Simon Barrett, who did an entry in the last film. The thing I like about this story is that after the Ratman story, this pretty much is where it hits the gas pedal. Instead of lagging on this story, it does a fairly good job of basically setting you up. Because this film is never boring. Not like number 3. This film, surprisingly, is actually very good. And they brought back the gore effects. So, after this story, we go back, you guessed it, to the empty warehouse. And more stuff happens. More grisly murders are discovered. Now, people end up dying as they watch these videotapes. The SWAT team members end up disappearing and stuff happens. The next story in this anthology is where this gore really explodes onto the screen. And the story is called The Subject. Now, this story starts off just a tad slow for like 5 minutes and then really accelerates. This is where the gore is, and this story is pretty unique because it's a combination of the old Frankenstein movies, a dash of Reanimator with the gore, and you have some of what made Frankenstein's army so amazing was the first person camera, shots, and really made you feel like you were the character. This concerns a doctor, a Japanese doctor, who kidnaps and turns women into android type creatures. They look like the Borg from Star Trek, actually, is the best way to put it. This thing is probably the most ultra goriest entry into this movie because there's mutilations, there's dudes getting their heads blown off, SWAT team members get exploded by grenades. I mean, you name it, you could probably see it. Very, very gory, very bloody. I think this story lasts a little bit longer than the other two because it had a lot of depth to it. It ends up a battle between the SWAT team who were raiding this scientist's lair and 2 of the experiments that this doctor has created. And on one hand, you're like, you want the SWAT team members to clean this place out. But when you see what happened to one of the missing girls, you actually feel sorry for her. And you knew this story couldn't really end that great, but interesting. And again, very claustrophobic. And it does look like something pulled out of a first-person shooter horror film or horror video game. Again, this is where the blood and gore really come through. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here, but this story is very entertaining, but it's not for the squeamish, I will tell you that. Very, very gory. Pretty much the high point in here, just like his Bone Storm was the high point in number 3. I think this one was the high point in VHS 94. Now, without losing the gas and the adrenaline in this film, the third story, or the fourth story, I lost count, is called Terror. Now, this story is a little bit hard to figure out in the beginning because you really don't know what's going on. It's written and directed by Ryan Prose, and basically, you see these group of white, middle-aged militia members, and at first you think they're hunting Russians or something. They are actually hunting vampires, and it takes a little bit for that story to get started. But it has echoes of John Carpenter's movie The Thing, because it's set in a winter sort of atmosphere, which reminds you of The Thing. It also has elements that were taken out of The Thing, but it deals with vampires. This story, again, is pretty wickedly bloody. You don't realize what's going on. This is a story I think you would have to watch twice to fully realize what's going on. But nevertheless, it never lags. It never gets boring. You kind of follow these guys, and as you follow them, the story's never boring because you're constantly learning about what they are going after. And toward the middle to the end of the story, it becomes a classic, you know, hide and seek, kill-a-thon between the militia members and a vampire, and it's pretty cool. The makeup effects in this are very good. In fact, if you saw VHS 2, then you'll recognize the makeup of the vampire. You will also notice that the gore does not skimp in this entry, but is stronger in the previous story. Now, on a sidebar here, between the first and the second story, I believe right after the first story, there's actually a mock commercial called the Veggie Masher. And it really does good at... It's put in right after the first story because the first story is basically a newscast with a story inside of it. So when they cut off to the news story, they do this commercial called the Veggie Masher, and it is an actual mock commercial. And it's directed by Steven Kostanski. Now, one of the things that's interesting is after you watch the first story about the Ratman creature and it jumps right into this, it gives you a little bit of a breathing room. Plus, it's done very well. If I saw that on TV, I would actually think it's an actual item. So I think the purpose of that commercial was just to give you a break and then jump right back into the terror. And the full commercial is actually available on the DVD. So I think it's one of those things that was so good they just had to add it. And it does well with the first story. It gives you like the impression you're watching an actual newscast with the commercial afterward. Very cool thing to do. Now, after the story about the militia, we are treated with the end of the VHS 94 movie, in which case this whole drug raid or murder scene investigation, whatever you'd like to call it, comes to a very shocking end. And I think for once there is a couple lines delivered by two of the SWAT team members, or you think are SWAT team members, I'm not going to give away the ending, on where these tapes come from, why there was so many of these tapes in circulation. And it makes sense. From a movie point of view, you have to reveal the origin of the tapes. You have to reveal why these tapes are in circulation, And they did a couple of cool one-lines, but you really have to listen for them. So I guess after the poor reception of VHS Viral, they had to step up their game. This, to me, was up there. It can be, I would say VHS 1 was awesome. You could put this one right before 2 or right after 2 in the top 3. VHS Viral is like the black sheep of the franchise, where it really didn't fit in, and I was not happy with that film. Like I said, aside from that Bone Storm story, it kind of faltered to me, missed the mark. This one is way better. And I hope the next one, if there is, and I got a feeling there will be, believe it or not, at some point, because this was just released last year, that if Shudder picked it up, they're probably going to be another one based on the popularity of this movie franchise. But this one, I am happy to say, is back to the original form. And like I said, it did not skip on the blood and gore. It was actually pretty intense. And it's about 104 minutes, but when you're watching it, if you're into it, it just speeds by. And like I said, the inclusion of the TV commercial was very cool. So definitely check that out. So I was really, really happy for this film because I looked at it, and normally things that go right to DVD sometimes are not that great. But this one, like I said, you can find on Shudder right now, streaming if you have the service, or if you have AMC Plus, Shudder does come with it. You could check it out. I did not see any of the other anthology pictures on Shudder at this time. So, but this one's definitely a home run. If you haven't watched any of them and you don't have any of the Blu-rays, you should definitely check this out. I mean, if you're a fan of horror, definitely give this a definitely ride in the park. So there's 5 stories that add up to one new nightmare, and I think this is a reimagining maybe of the series or a continuation. I'm not sure, But when you check it out, some of the comments that you will see is deeply disturbing, delightfully gruesome, which it is. And this is a Shudder original, which makes me think that the series is being repackaged, redone, and maybe remade by Bloody Disgusting. These stories are, in the same vein as the other three movies, but I think they're done a little bit better, in my opinion. And I could go on and tell you how cool I thought this movie was and everything else, but I already did that. So, that being said, definitely give VHS 94 a whirl if you haven't seen it. I know Halloween's drawing close, and it would be the perfect, gory movie for you to see. And there's all kinds of, like I said, blood and carnage in this that equals one. So that's that. And I wanted to mention, too, that I know I got off on a rant yesterday about, friends. And my wife asked me the other night, she says, how come friends are so important to you? And I mean, I'm talking to Casey and Emily and all my subscribers. And I said it this way. I said, guys, I said, I know, those guys that pay attention to you, that help you in life, they never have to help you in life. They can just go about their business and not give you the time of day. But when they're cool with you, that, and they're going out of their way for you, to me, that's special. I don't know. Maybe it was just the way I was raised, guys. I don't know. But I value friendship very well because, in life, it's hard enough to get by on your own. And when you have somebody that's fake, like the person I described yesterday, that doesn't want to help you or say she will, say she'll call, basically, to me, that hurts. Because if you put years into being nice to somebody and you think they're your friend, and then they turn around and pull that crap, it's like, why did I waste all that time? And who knows, I could be sitting here later today and I could get some really horrific news. God forbid, guys. And I'm going to need people to help me pull through that. And that's why friends are so important to me. Because if you're willing to get me out of a tough situation or be there to support me through the good times, bad times, don't ask any questions and just be down. I really, really appreciate that more than anything else in this life, other than my marriage. And there's a few people that we've had situations with. We have family stuff going on, really bad family stuff, and I just haven't been in the mood to talk to many people. So, John, Josh, my man undead, Casey, Emily, my man Brian, I hardly mention him, and my man Keith, Jen, I got all these people that I talk to on a daily basis. And usually it's, what's up, how you doing? Oh, you staying cool? Cool, all right. And that's as far as it gets. But, sometimes, guys, in life, we hate to admit it as men. Something bad happens. I'm going to say, hey, guys, I need you because I'm destroyed. I don't know how to pick myself up in life. Or you have an issue and you don't know what to do, and you go over and say, hey, Josh, Emily, what would I do? You pull guidance from them. And if they're cool enough to help you through a problem, then you thank them tenfold, guys. And that's why friendship is so important to me. And the way it is in this world now is that, people with this whole COVID thing, they don't know how to trust each other. They're fighting over vaccines. At least they were. I don't know if they're still doing it now. But it's hard to gauge friendship because people are so uptight, afraid anymore that you don't know what's going on. And then you have friends at work that, I used to have. And then they get better jobs, or you see them once a year and they say, yeah, dude, I'll give you a call. And you know what? They never do. Or you see people that come in monthly and you say, Hey, Mallory, you know, what's up? And just talking to them, you're still cool with them. So that's great. And if they see you out in public, they wave, they acknowledge you. And that's nice to know that you're wanted as a friend by somebody. So that's why friendship is so important to me. And, me and my wife, we don't go out with a lot of people, but the people that, I say, like, hey, Casey, why don't we do some lunch or something? Because I want to get to know you, because I know you're a valuable person, and that if I have a problem, you guys would help me through it. And same thing, if you guys have a problem, come to me. Come to Dawn. We've been around. We've done all kinds of crazy stuff. We've been put through the ringer. And that's why friendship is so important to me. And I know that maybe I didn't say this correctly, but you value people is what I'm saying. And, for all the people that watch me, I cannot stress enough that the only reason I'm still doing this is because you guys watch. And I appreciate all your comments. I mean, I've had people come up and go, hey, Greg, thanks for talking to me about that movie. I really want to check it out. And then they come back and they say, Greg, that movie was awesome. Your guess right. I love hearing that kind of feedback. Because it's not like I'm watching dumb movies for nothing. I mean, people actually care about this stupid crap. And I'm glad I could tell you guys about it. And I tell you them all the time. I tell you how important you guys are to me. I mean, I know 45, 50 people don't sound like much, but at least you have the attention of those people. And I am grateful, more grateful than most YouTube people out here that you guys really appreciate what I do. From Rebecca to Brian, Casey, Emily, John, Josh, and my family. Some of my family watches me, and I'm really grateful about that. So that's why, again, friendship is so important to me. And no matter what movies I talk about, how important or how great I think they are, they don't hold a candle to a good friend. So I just wanted you guys to know that. And I really appreciate you guys, watching me. Because there's so much crap on YouTube. You could watch whatever you want. But I'm glad I got your attention. And I hope you enjoy, the stupid movies I tell you. And VHS 94 isn't stupid, but in the big grand scheme of things, it's minor compared to the things in the world. And sometimes, like I tell people, you know what? There's so much garbage going on in the world. Sit in your living room for 2 hours, pop on a dumb horror flick or action movie, whatever, and just let it take you away for 2 hours. Let it give you a break from the world. That's why I like watching movies so much, because sometimes you come down here, you're all stressed out, you don't care about nothing, you put on a horror movie, and you're taken back to the 80s or whatever, and you're dropped in an alternate reality where you watch it for 2 hours and you forget about your problems for at least 2 hours. That's why I watch movies, guys. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I didn't mean to get too deep, but to all the real friends out there that watch me and support me and that I talk to on a daily basis, I just want to say how important you guys really are to me. Because sometimes at work we pass and I don't get to tell you how cool you are. I saw my man Tim a couple of days ago. I haven't seen him in 2 years. And he saw me, he was coming up a ramp, and I looked at him and I said, I didn't have to say nothing. He's like, Greg Warner, man, I missed you, buddy. And I said, yeah, I missed you too. That's awesome when you have that kind of thing. So Tim, if you ever watch this, give me a call. All right, man. I'm gonna go up and get some breakfast, and we'll be back tomorrow with another movie review. I'll talk to you then.